just got to say, this is the most beautiful venue. So thank you so much to the Bitcoin Collective for putting this together. As I understand it, this event is mostly about businesses and how Bitcoin can sort of help businesses integrate into businesses. So before I get quizzical with my panel, I just wanted to get a sense from you guys. Could you raise your hand if you are sort of very confident with Bitcoin? You are, say, a Bitcoiner. Just raise your hand if you're a Bitcoiner. Oh, that's like 2/3 of the room. 2/3 of the room? Okay. So that's to help us get a sense of what's going on. Okay, so for the other third of you, we're also going to help you. But in the meantime, I'm going to catch my breath as I just took a flight here from Latvia this morning, where it was very, very cold. So please could you introduce yourself in one sentence and then answer the question, is now a good time to get into Bitcoin? For example, I am Joe, I'm a Bitcoin journalist. Is now a good time to get into Bitcoin? Yes, yes it is. Over to you, Ismael.
Sentence.
Not the yes, but the introduction is a one sentence, please.
Right. I'm Ismael Dainehine. I'm the co-founder and CEO at EverGive. EverGive essentially is helping charities make Bitcoin an endowment asset to help build out their financial resilience and make them less reliant on public donations or institutional funding, so they become financially secure.
That was a wonderfully long sentence. Is now a good time?
I think now is the best time to get into Bitcoin. I think that one of the issues of getting into Bitcoin when it's kind of rallying and on the rise is that there's just way too much noise. And so abstracting all of that away and really seeing Bitcoin for its fundamentals helps you really reflect on what is really valuable about Bitcoin rather than what people tell you is valuable.
Ooh,
that
nice.
Nice enough?
That's nice and spicy too. I like that. Thank you. Vijay, who are you?
Yeah, I work at Gemini. I'm international general counsel there. I'm a lawyer, but I'm also author of Principles of Bitcoin. Is now the best time? Well, the best time to buy Bitcoin would have been 2010, I guess, when it was less than a penny. The second best time is today. So yeah.
The famous African proverb, the best time to plant a tree or buy Bitcoin was January 2009. Second best time is today. Great. Joe, who are you?
Well, Joe Bryan, creator of What's the Problem? And it's always a good time to buy Bitcoin. And the price changes we've seen in the last 30 days have probably spooked some people because people tend not to expect a 20% drop or a 30% drop, but this is just noise. It's just noise. You can't go from being a PDF on an email to representing the entire value of the world without volatility, right? This is the only asset in the world which is a total free market, and the price has to fall. If the price never fell, then something is wrong. Because if the price just goes up, it goes up, people buy, they speculate, something changes, it's got to sell off again. This is just the way the free market works. This is free market money. And so, I always recommend people to think about the very long term. Like, you're not owning, well, I say you're not, I'm not owning, and I suspect a lot of you would resonate with this, owning Bitcoin so that I can someday have more fiat. I'm owning Bitcoin because I know they're never going to stop printing the fiat. And eventually it's going to zero. And when you measure anything in the thing that goes to zero purchasing power, everything else goes to infinity. This chair is going to be worth $1 million one day, brand new. It is.
You're all in on the chair.
I'm all in on this chair, but not this. Not this chair unless it's indestructible. But a chair in the future is going to cost $1 million in this system. So what's Bitcoin going to be worth? We are measuring it in a frame of reference that is being systematically destroyed. That is the big picture, and that is just on the value protection piece. But then we can talk about the other bits after. Sorry, slightly more than one sentence.
That was beautiful. No, I wanted to hear that because a lot of people in this room are probably feeling a little bit nervous that Bitcoin dropped to, £60,000-ish or $79,000. And yeah, it's scary when you look at this price chart going down, and it's like lots of red, and it's all quite intense. And if you're relatively new to the Bitcoin space and you haven't got to this deep deep understanding of what Bitcoin is, of what the system is, then these moments can be a little bit challenging, a little bit troubling, and you can sort of test that conviction, as it does take a lot of time before you really understand what Bitcoin is and where the world is going. So I wanted to address that point a little bit more. I mean, Vijay, do you have these conversations with the Winklevoss twins? Are they turning to you and say, Vijay, reassure me, I read your book, but I need help with my hundreds of thousands of Bitcoins?
Yeah, I always say that, I say this on every panel that I'm on, actually, but there's one thing more important than buying Bitcoin. It is studying Bitcoin. Because you're actually, if you, the only thing worse than being a no-coiner is being someone who owns Bitcoin but doesn't understand it, because what will end up happening is you will sell the bottom and then get sidelined. And that's the worst you can do, actually, because, I mean, if you were a no-coiner, never touched Bitcoin, at least you'll have your fiat or your property or whatever, and you'll have that. But if you sell the bottom, then you're gone, right? So there's no better investment than the time you spend to understand this. And you got to understand it holistically. It's not just, it might be a great investment for you, but it's, a humanitarian tool for other people. And you look at the bigger picture, and you understand that this is not going anywhere. You understand what true scarcity means in an inflationary fiat world that we live in. You got to understand money. You got to understand all these things, and it takes 1,000 hours at least to get there. So yeah, studying Bitcoin, I think, is super important. And I mean, yeah, there are plenty of people who own lots of Bitcoin and don't completely understand it.
They do. Okay, I understand why you say that on every panel. Thank you, Vijay. I wanted to look back at 2025 now. As you know, the seasons are changing. We're getting to Christmas time. If we look back on 2025, and I'm going to go to Ismael first, what trend would you say, or what event in 2025 made you feel that Bitcoin is even more inevitable than ever?
For me, two things really. Number one, the tariffs, the wars with the tariffs. I think that just kind of eroded the trust that one single nation can be the single kind of arbiter and anchor of global trade and commerce. And people are hedging their bets against that. I think that's the trust in a single reserve currency, I think, eroded a lot because of that and a number of other events. The second thing would just be very anecdotally, just friends of mine, the smartest people I'm meeting every day are have weaker and weaker belief in a system of just indefinite inflation and debt, and just opting out of that. And so people, the smartest people I think that I've met, are moving away at the margins and at the phrase. So those compounding in the right way have just made me feel like this is inevitable.
You say they're moving away. Are they moving away from you as well, or are they moving towards you in this process?
Yeah, they're moving more towards the Bitcoin kind of ideology.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah.
Cool. Vijay, can I ask you the same question? What's the most sort of the best events of 2025?
Yeah, I think the New York mayor election, where you guys were seeing Mamdani was elected mayor, who's essentially a complete socialist, right? Populist socialist, and his biggest voter base were like young people, basically, right? So we're moving towards, it's kind of like, how many people have read The Fourth Turning here? Yeah, it's kind of like if you've read it, then you just kind of point out, oh, I've seen that before. Kind of, that makes sense. It's so it's plenty of this kind of, Alexander Tytler, this Scottish historian, has one of my favorite quotes. He says, "Democracy cannot exist as a permanent form of government. It only exists until the point when the majority realizes that they can vote themselves largesse out of the public purse. And from that point on, people just vote for the party promising the most benefits until the system collapses and is destroyed." So this is not an indictment on democracy. I'm not saying we shouldn't have democracy, but the point is that democracy is not compatible with a discretionary, centrally planned money. It just doesn't work because those with the discretion will abuse the system. They will always abuse the power that they have in order to stay in power. That's just how it always works. So, I mean, the gold standard is great, but digital gold, even better.
Beautiful. I think the guys here want to jump in. Just because I'm wearing a fancy blazer and I'm called the moderator, feel free to jump in, guys. Go ahead, Ismael.
I totally agree. I mean, for me, 2025 is the year that people are starting to wake up. Like the everyday person is starting to wake up, and it's not necessarily to Bitcoin. It's starting to wake up to the fact that something's wrong. They can feel things deteriorating. They can't put their finger on it. And this is why we're having this lurch to the left. This is why the young are being attracted to socialism, because they just don't understand. They don't understand. And we get this political extremism coming in. It's like you go to the left and then you snap all the way back to the right. And both of it, it's everything for the state. It's everything for the state in one form or another, as you go too far right. And it only ends up in death and destruction for everybody. And it takes time to see the bigger picture. But once you see, as Vijay says, like, this has happened before. Like, this is happening next. The government is coming for everybody's assets. Ultimately, they're coming for everybody's assets. One way or the other, they're either coming to your front door with a gun in your face, asking for half your income, while someone else is sneaking through the back door, taking 10% of everything you own every year without you hopefully noticing. Someone else is then shortly coming in to take the roof off, examine what you have, and take a certain percentage every year, because it's unfair otherwise. And then when you die, as your children are crying, someone comes in and cuts the remaining 50% of your stuff away. Like, we are slaves to the state, right? And to Vijay's point, it only ends up with total capitulation to the state. And so you end up losing everything. So, most of our conversations when it comes to Bitcoin are about the price or the store of value. But that's only half the picture. There's no point having a store of value if it's not actually yours. And so the only thing you can own and truly own is Bitcoin. You carry it in your head. It's just information. You have to be tortured to give that up. You have to voluntarily hand that over. And so every one of us, I think, is on the path to a realization that we're actually solving for two things. One is, how do I protect the value I've created? And two is, how do I ensure I always have access to the value I created? And once you come to that realization, the single point on those two sets of axes is Bitcoin. And so everything, all the assets in the world, all the decision-making in the world is gradually sweeping down to Bitcoin, right? It's just different people are on different parts of that journey. So when the price is falling, zoom out, understand why you own it. And then specifically, the people in the room today, this is business focused. And, normally we're talking about owning Bitcoin yourself. But for many of us, a lot of our assets or our income is wrapped up in a business structure. And half the challenge of running a business once you're profitable is, how do you get the money out of the business, right? Without getting robbed again by the government. And it's hard. And so quite often you say, well, I'm just going to try and grow the assets in the business, even if I'm not trying to actively grow the business, right? So you end up accumulating these things. Now, what is nice is that if you run a private business, you have the discretion to save in whatever you want. And you're thinking on timeframes which are in your control. You dictate them. But you also have a level of flexibility which allows you to insulate yourself personally. So at any point in time, you can always buy the Bitcoin off the business at the fair market price, right? And so if your business holds Bitcoin in self-custody, you and you alone can take ownership of that if you ever needed to, in exchange for a fiat loan. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so you, as an individual, you have two escape hatches to be able to say no. on whatever degree, to whatever extent is relevant for you, but you can say no, right? And Bitcoin allows us to go as a population from being harmless to being peaceful. The difference is harmless is that you're irrelevant. Peaceful is that you choose to be peaceful. Okay, and Bitcoin is the only way that we can arm ourselves in a way which is peaceful.
Okay. Is this resonating with you guys so far? You're getting some nods, yeah? Some thumbs up? Okay, good. I'm worried that we have a business perspective and we have the ideological perspective. And for a lot of Bitcoiners, they come to it from the ideology, right? And then it's that practical use case that sometimes gets that light bulb moment.
The world is changing fast, and your business is no exception. How you save, plan, and protect your future is shifting, and standing still now means falling behind. This is the reason we are launching the UK's first Bitcoin business network. And it exists to help UK businesses protect what they've built and turn Bitcoin into a genuine competitive advantage. It's a place for founders, entrepreneurs, and executives to share what's working, learn from people actually doing it, and help drive positive change across the UK. So if you are a business owner or an entrepreneur, hit the link down below to join the network and help shape the future of Bitcoin in the UK. Okay. Let's get back to the video.
Kind of wanted to play a little bit of devil's advocate for the last sort of 8-ish minutes because, let's try it this way. Raise your hands if you've ever been debanked. What? That's mad. Okay, that's like a third of the room. Cool, my friends. Okay, raise your hand. I was expecting a way lower number. Raise your hand if you've ever needed to send Bitcoin, specifically Bitcoin, across borders. Oh, damn it. Again, way higher than I thought. We are really talking to some Bitcoiners here today. And then, we'll skip the last one. But clearly there is a use case for Bitcoin that has surprised me today, given that we've spoken a lot about custody, about, looking after this thing that you can actually own. I was going to talk to the other properties of Bitcoin, which clearly resonate with a third of the room already. And I wanted to bring in Ismael about this because you have created a very practical use case for Bitcoin that not a lot of people know about. And I think there's a lesson here to be taken for the rest of the room with regards to their business. So I'm going to hand you the floor, Ismael.
Yeah, so we've been helping people raise money for charity for many years. I'll try to be as concise as possible. So we've raised hundreds of millions now for charities across the country and around the world. But the problem is that charities constantly need to do that again and again every year. So we were solving two problems, one for donors and one for charities. For donors, we were thinking of a way, how can we make this the last donation that they ever need to make? And for charities, how can we make this the last fundraiser that they ever need to make? And then we found Bitcoin as the perfect asset to do that. I can go into the reasons why, but this is a Bitcoin crowd, so they probably resonate with why Bitcoin is a perfect asset to do that. So then that's kind of locally how we're using Bitcoin quite practically to make that whole sector more resilient. But just practically as well, I was with a large foundation in London earlier this week, and they need to send a lot of money to south of Sudan. So everything is regulated, everything is kind of checked off by the Charity Commission, etc. But the banks aren't so friendly to that transaction. So no issues regulation-wise, but banking-wise, they needed to have a censorship-resistant kind of a form of value exchange that they can pass that value over. And again, Bitcoin is very relevant. And again, just a more broader and more like kind of telling example of why money that can't be politicized matters. I'm sure many of you will be familiar with NSARS, the Nigerian kind of political movement against the government, where the government tried to choke that civil rights movement financially. And the activists then resorted to this leaderless, decentralized money network to be the financial backbone of their civil kind of protest. So every day in and day out, we're seeing examples of where Bitcoin is actually used practically in a way that's disruptive.
Very good. Joe, you look like you wanted to jump in there. No? Oh, okay. Keeping me on my toes here. I like it. So let's bring it back to the UK for the last couple of minutes here. And in particular, where am I going with this? Ah, that's it. Okay. So why Bitcoin? Why now? When we look back at this period in 10 years' time, what's thing that will seem obvious in hindsight, but today is not so obvious. And I kind of want to tie into what you were saying earlier, Joe, about, a lot of people are drawn to, say, like the extreme left now or the extreme right, or people get, obsessed with like thinking that a fad diet is going to fix the economy, or another sort of absurd idea. We live in an arena of increasingly absurd ideas, which are increasingly seductive to a larger number of people. Why is it that Bitcoin might be this obvious thing in, say, 10 years' time?
Well, I would say that I was thinking about this, and it sounds so obvious, but in 10 years' time, I hope it will be very, very clear to everybody that for money to be a good money, you need to be able to actually hold it yourself. Right? If we were going to create money today and it didn't exist, you absolutely would not create it with the quality you can't hold it yourself. Right? That would be absolutely nonsensical. But that is the world that we live in today. It's like, you can't hold money. You have to hold it in the banks. Cash will soon be gone. Right? They're trying to eradicate it. Someone else has to hold your money for you. I mean, that's ludicrous. Like, even from like a first principles perspective for money, that is nonsense. Right? But it's so obvious, but like nobody questions it on a day-to-day basis. But in 10 years' time, it's going to be so clear because people have been hurt. But, a third of the room have been debanked. Many businesses perhaps worry about their banking provider switching them off at some point in time, and then you can't pay your staff, you can't pay, your suppliers, and you go to the wall because somebody somewhere said no. Right? You shouldn't have to have that level of risk in your business. You should be holding the money yourself. And this, unfortunately, people are going to find out the hard way because, this government is not about to let you keep any more of your own money than you currently have limited access to.
Maybe we can go down the line with this question. Vijay, next. What's one thing that would look obvious in 10 years' time?
Yeah, I like Joe's point about self-custody. It's like, I like to say that you only appreciate a problem. But you only appreciate a solution when you understand the problem. So if someone just came, like actually not this group because a third of us have been debanked, but typically you just walk on the streets and talk to someone, like self-custody is not going to be that appealing because most people have bank accounts. It's the backbone of their day-to-day life. You don't appreciate the solution if you've not experienced the problem. But I suspect we will have more and more people experiencing the problem over the next 10 years. But I just think, so that's the self-custody point, permissionlessness, censorship resistance. But I think scarcity is probably the most critical one for our time in the sense, I think it was Jeff Booth who said, scarcity in money leads to abundance in everything else. And abundance in money leads to scarcity in everything else. And I think that will become more and more clear over the next 10 years when, money just continues to get inflated away and the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. If you have assets, you're great, you're good, you get richer. If you don't have assets and you're earning a paycheck and living, paycheck to paycheck, things are going to get much harder. So I think the simple fact that, scarcity is important will become a lot clearer 10 years from now when you look back in hindsight.
Thank you, Vijay.
I think Joe and Vijay gave really good answers. I think slightly changing the question in terms of what will surprise us in 10 years, looking back, I think how little our culture thought about what money actually is. And secondly, how we let them get away with it for so long.
Mic drop. Okay, we'll do a quick fire down the line. Why buy Bitcoin rather than precious metals? You've got, should we do 20 seconds each?
Let's try.
Okay, let's go, Joe.
Because you don't actually own them unless you take self-custody of the gold and the silver. And then when something happens, you either accumulate too much and you're worried about the security, and then you want to go and put it in a vault and get a piece of paper, and then you're back to basically having a bank account, which can be separated from you at the stroke of a pen by the government. And if you ever need to go anywhere, you can't actually take them. You can't take them through an airport. You can't take more than $10,000 in any form through an airport. You are... I'm sorry? Oh, well, I'm just saying in general, because that's $10,000 measured in fiat. And $10,000 measured in fiat in 20 years' time is going to be like $1,000 today. And that gold, even a small amount, you won't be able to take with you because you get captured by the nominal inflation effectively that's there. And so Bitcoin is the only thing that you can own. And yeah, I mean, it's certainly better than owning fiat, but it's one step away from the final solution.
Vijay, so
Yeah, I think if you just study the reasons why gold failed as a money and paper currency was introduced, it was because verifiability, divisibility, those were the two major issues. Bitcoin solves both those, right? But most importantly, it's unconfiscatable, right? You look at the US Order 6102 when FDR had the gold holdings of all American citizens confiscated, right? You can't do that with Bitcoin. That is a huge benefit, especially considering the kind of era that we are progressing into.
very good. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be super quick. This was a really interesting problem for us. We needed to find something that stores value, not for a century, but for perpetuity. Gold, I think a lot of people don't realize, I'll be very quick. I think a lot of people don't realize is aluminium once upon a time was more valuable and precious and rare than gold. And eventually with technology, it became obsolete. And now we throw away Coke cans with aluminium. So although gold at the moment is actually possible to recreate in a lab, but it's just cost prohibitive to do so. One day with AI as it is, I think the same will happen to gold.
Lovely. I hope that has persuaded you, sir. And if not, yeah, it has. Great. If not, the next panel is actually about custody. What kind of Bitcoiner? By the end of the day, you'll be a full-blown raving Bitcoiner. It'd be great. But my answer, by the way, is that Bitcoin has way better memes than gold does. Thank you so much, everyone. This was Why Bitcoin, Why Now?